This thing's a pretty neat car. I believe he said it was a 27. But the problem was when he got it, the steering was so bad in it, it would get a crazy death wobble at like 5 miles an hour. It looks to be pretty well built. The frame and everything, the welding, all that looks pretty nice. But this is kind of odd. The shocks are back here mounted to the engine block. They're a little far back on the arm. I don't think they do a whole lot. They'd be better if they were farther up here. You would put them up under the headlights and bring the headlights up just a hair. A steering damper on the front would probably help a little bit. It does have a track bar here to keep the front end from moving sideways. Good idea. And it has some caster in it. I can see it in the kingpins. So what I ended up doing, the original box, this is the original box that was in it. It turned out that that is a 36 Chevy box, I believe it was, by the part number that's on it. And usually, you know, with any of these steering boxes, you always had a nut on the back. This one must have broken. Somebody put that in it, but you can tighten that up and it will shove this shaft forward and tighten the gearing up in it a little bit. But then there comes to a point where the gearing is so worn out that when you tighten it in a straight ahead position, it feels good, but when you turn the wheel, then it's too tight. So this, I believe, was a Ford box, and I'm not sure what this is. So my friend that owns this car, his name's Scott, he brought these boxes over. I wanted to put a new one in it, but he's trying to keep the budget down, because I believe he's just going to turn around and sell it, but he wants it to be safe for whoever buys it. So this is the same, similar year box, but the mounting is just different. That one mounted on the side, this on the top, and it used the same steering arm. So I'm like, well, let's try that one. So this one's pretty much maxed out on the adjustment, but it's a lot tighter than the other one is. So we'll see how this works out. I took it apart. It's pretty clean inside. Most of the time what guys will do when these things start leaking and stuff is just pack them with grease instead of oil. But I personally, I think the grease actually makes them harder to steer. So I'm just going to put oil back in it, and if it drips a little, then so be it. But I got a new bracket made up for it and got it mounted on there. You can see here. And he had a few things he wanted me to do. So there's some crazy stuff in here. You can see how tight for room this thing is back here. And he's a bigger guy. He's a little over 6 feet, 260 I believe, so he needs more leg room. And the steering wheel used to be way down here, like this, right in your lap, and it was over to the right too far. And then the shifter was just crazy. He brought me this shifter, which is kind of neat, and I've started working on it. But it had another shifter right here that was like right in your way. Now you can see the way this transmission setup, it's inside the car. It does have a pan underneath the whole bottom of the car that seals it all up. But you know, you're gonna get a lot of heat in here, but that's what this car is all about, I guess. But look at this. See, here's the shift arm. Somebody modified it to fit. Usually the shift arms are pretty tight, and I already checked the rod on the arm itself. Everything is solid. So it's got a problem inside the tranny with a detent or something, because the slop in this thing is freaking crazy. Look at this. So you shouldn't have that much slop between gears. So it makes it really hard. This is a detent shifter, maybe a Chevy or Oldsmobile or something. It would have been really neat to have this. There's so much slop in this thing, it's kind of hard for the detents to do what they're going to do. And I can't make the arm any shorter, any longer. It already hits the firewall. Any shorter and you can't get it out apart. I stuck the spring on here at first just to see. It kind of helps pull it up instead of just sagging onto the floor. But with this rod down here on the side, I'm able to get it out of park then. But if I had the rod initially come up on the side and come up to here, it would come up to here, the factory spot, and it won't work that way because of the slop. You can't get it. You can't get it out of park with it hanging down that far. So here's the shifter I got. Look at this. There's the drive shaft right there. That's crazy. Alright, so this is where the old shifter was. It was hanging way out here, and it was heavy. It was a thick piece, and it could have caused all of the damage in here. The problem was so here's the hammer accelerator pedal. I shortened the brake pedal. The brake pedal used to be all the way down on the floor and way back here, so you had to drive with 2 feet. So shorten that up. So yeah, so when you hit the accelerator, you actually end up hitting this with your foot and shoving it into park. You hit that accelerator, you can shove that whole thing all the way up into park, and that may have been what happened. My friend Scott here said that happened to him and scared the crap out of him. So he brought over here and asked me to fix some things up for him. The shifter, I kind of like this idea here. For leverage, this arm has to be the same length as the arm down here for this thing to work, and the detents to be even close to what they're supposed to do. And it had to be down along the side because of the slop in the front. So this way I think is good. He can fit his leg in here and down there, and this will be pushed over to the side a little bit. The detents are pretty close, mainly as long as I can get it to lock into drive and park. That's the main thing. If it's locked into drive, then you can't move it. You know, first, reverse, all that, who cares? It's only there for a minute. So I think I got that pretty well set up. And then the steering column, I ended up putting a U-joint in it here. I got a U-joint for it, so it can be moved around, and I was able to push it up out of my way. And whoever gets the car the next time can easily make new holes and kind of move it up and down wherever they want. So I think that U-joint would be nice. And if you ever got hit in it, even though the steering box has nowhere to go really, the steering column would fold more than just coming straight at you because of the U-joint. I think that's pretty good. But and then the seat, he wanted maybe the front to be lifted just a hair because you tend to slide down on these seats. But yeah, I started on this, got most of it pretty mocked up. Today I'm just going to weld everything up, and it's going to be pretty solid. But this is a neat, it's a pretty well done car in the beginning, and then some of this stuff's a little scary, but it's mainly the steering and the safety stuff we got to get straightened out on this thing. Differential's open, but it's all sealed underneath, so you definitely don't want windows in this thing. But and the fuel pump probably needs to be moved. See how it's sitting up kind of high compared to the tank, and it pulls from the top of the tank. So every now and then it'll lose prime in the morning. You know, I'll just pump some air into this thing and it'll prime it back up again. But if it was at least moved down near the bottom of the tank, at least the fuel line would hold enough fuel in it to keep it primed. I think that would be a quick, easy, simple idea. I like the rear bar. It's almost like a Nerf bar kind of a deal. The rear bumper bars, those are neat. I like the flat tops. It's just a tongue and groove board. And a mild chop. It's a big block Chevy. Yeah, just get rid of that death wobble. This thing would be pretty awesome with dual quads on it or something, you know, multiple carbs or something like that. Kind of fill up this area right in here. Maybe some old rusty valve covers or vintage valve covers. Not so much the billet stuff on this car. I like the visor, that's pretty neat. Alright, so I'll finish up all the welding and everything, and I'll get back to you guys. The window needs to be shortened still, but it's okay for now. Alright, so I got the thing's still pretty good. It's all welded up. Looks pretty decent. Looks pretty good. I've got this piece back here welded across the back. That ought to keep the plate from flexing. So I really don't want to put a standoff on the front side. I need to get in there to loosen and tighten the bolts for it. So we'll see how that works. I don't see why that wouldn't be okay. And then I'll just round off the corners, make it look nice. And I got the U-joint welded on here. Personally, for me, just to be safe. And I mean, everything looks great. With the heat, it sounded good, like it was really burning in. Looks pretty solid, but I've seen these, being that this is a solid shaft and that's not, you have to apply more heat to this anyways, as opposed to the U-joint side. So there's always a chance that this could break free from this right here. I saw that on Roadkill once. They welded something. Oh, it was an axle on the Ratrod, and it broke free. The weld broke free from the solid axle portion of it. So you might think it's welded good, but it's really not. So I'll drill it and run a pin through it, and maybe weld both ends of the pin, and then you won't even see it. Or you can just run a bolt through and tighten the bolt down, whatever you want to do. It's always a good idea for safety, especially on manual steering. There is a lot of torque on this box and this arm here, as opposed to power steering. A lot of stress on it. So I would drill it. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to drill this and put a pin or something in there and make it look nice. I think a pin will look nicer than a big bolt sticking through it. Alright, well, so everything's welded. I've got pins put in it. It's all pinned and tacked, so they ain't coming out. And then I just figured I'd make a super simple quick release steering column. This is how it was before. It just had a bolt running through. It's a little scary. Need more strength than that on a manual box. So I drill a hole through it. I happen to have these 5/16 high shear strength racing pins, and that's a perfect fit for this thing. The little detent ball is perfect for this thing. I bought these for my seat on my 52, do quick release for the seat, but they were too small. So this will work perfect on this. No slop. I got it really tight. That should be nice. Alright, so let's see, what do I got left? Okay, now I'm going to just kind of round the corners on this thing, make it look nice. It's pretty good. Now let's go inside. Pretty good. Let's try this thing. That is awesome. Alright, let's find the center of the arm here. So what I gotta do first, gotta find out where the center of the pivot for this arm is. Somewhere in between. Right about there. Right there. That's pretty good right there. I think that'll be all right. Put that on there. As long as it's in the center of the movement of the box, or that steering arm. Let's try this. So I gotta make sure that the throw on this arm is in the center of the box. See, I think the kingpins in this thing are seized or something. You can't even turn this thing. I'm gonna snug that up for now, and then I'm gonna jack the front up and check the kingpins in this thing. Something else is keeping it from moving. Well, I got the thing made up for her. Tied up all the cuts, and I mean, it fit in there really nice. I got it folded into the bottom. I just don't know how I feel about coming out. I wanted something kind of deco, Art Deco looking, but it's simple. I don't know, I'll check with Scott, see if he likes it, or if I should just kind of round this off, maybe. Just round off the edges. Yeah, it would be neat to put a bigger one here, but this is all open in the back, so that might kind of distract from it. But eventually this should rust and match the dash. I think that'd probably be alright without getting too crazy with it. But so far, all I got to do now is adjust I got the brake pedal pretty good position, just a hair higher than the gas pedal, so you don't hit one without the other. But this hammer accelerator, I think I need to cut the ball off the end here, because when you sweep your foot from here to here, you catch the end of that ball with your foot. So I'll cut that off and bring this way just a hair more. And then we're going to put a little pad. Found this little Volkswagen pad that he had. Put it kind of over here on the side so you can rest your left foot on it without getting your feet in the way, because it's really tight in here. These things are super tight. So here's the gas. If my foot's over here on the side tucked in, so you kind of you gotta be able to sweep from one to the other without hitting the gas. And he doesn't want to ride with 2 feet if he doesn't have to. So I'll put that pad over here, keep your foot over here, kind of a place to keep it. That should be okay like that. I think that'll be all right. So we'll start working on that. This thing here looks like it might be okay. I'll just get the torch, straighten that out, and we'll get on it. And so it looks like, so I already showed you guys the pedals. I got the pedals in pretty good position. Brake pedals shortened a little bit. I got my ratchet and shifter worked out. Pretty happy with it. And then the steering column, I redid the steering column this time. I had it fixed before with the new plate on it, but it turned out he still couldn't fit under the column, his legs. So I made it to where it's adjustable. And it worked out pretty good. I just moved the bracket up and put a slot in it. It's got a U-joint down halfway down the shaft, so it can be, length can be adjusted on it a little bit. And then there's just kind of a little hobo quick release steering wheel on this thing. It's got it nice and tight. And then he came by and put this new air cleaner on it that he had laying around. This thing's pretty sharp looking. Looks pretty nice on there. Looks more period correct than that billet. And then he's having a friend of his who's an artist, Shamrock, make him a neat hood ornament for it. The steering box is in. I drove it down the street. It drives a lot better now. Steering box brackets, yeah, that's 1/4 inch steel. That's not going anywhere. It's pretty solid. So all he wants me to do now is just put some seat belts on the driver's side. And then I did make these brackets to kick the seat up a hair in the front so you don't slide off them. And that little channel kind of helps hold the cushion in there, so that worked out really nice. So I'll throw in some seat belts in it, just on the driver's side at least. That's all he gave me, and I think that's about all that's left on this thing. All right, we're in the car now. I can't see anything out of this thing. Death wobble at 5 miles an hour before. was quite a ride. It feels 100% better. That last bumpy road I was on is where that front end just went nuts on me before. So this box is definitely a lot better. So I guess Scott got lucky and he brought me over a good box. Didn't have to buy another one. For the amount of miles this thing will be driven, that box will probably be on here forever. But so far, it's still scary with that accelerator pedal. I got to trim the edge of that off because you can easily hit the brake and the accelerator at the same time. That's scary. There's just no room for your feet in here. So I got a few other things to tie up. He brought me over a seatbelt. Like that would do you any good. I'd probably almost rather be on a motorcycle. At least you could bail if somebody's gonna hit you. You ain't bailing out of this thing. But they're still cool, man. These things are really neat for what they're used for, you know. But it would be neat to make something like this to do 180 miles an hour. How about that? All right, well, I guess that's it for today. Finish up a few things, and later on I'm going over to Shamrock's. He got his car finished after probably, I think, about 14 years or something. So we're gonna do a video of him getting that thing out. It's a 36 Ford, I believe. He did like a Zephyr design with it, long Zephyr fenders in the rear and all kinds of stuff. Really neat. All right, guys, thanks for watching.